Hello everybody. We're going to start the stream. We are going to continue our engine repair on the 2011 Outback. We took this engine out during the last stream and we had to put it on the back burner while we waited for some parts. I'm logging into the chat right now. We're going to see how far along we can get. Today I am starting very late on this. It's almost 1:30 Central Standard Time in the afternoon. I'm going to try and speak up the best that I can, but I am just, as usual, tired, exhausted, and all the other fun things that come with being a mechanic. So, if you didn't catch the last stream, I'll give you a recap. This vehicle came in, it has 150,000 miles. She's on her original head gaskets. She had some extensive oil leaks on the upper oil pan, which would be the oil pan adapter plate to the short block. Valve covers. We have some seals on the back of the cylinder heads, and she's never done a timing belt. Now she was kind of debating on keeping the car, if not trading it in or maybe selling it, but I looked at her history and I said, you know, you've been babying this car, you've been maintaining it very well. I mean, shoot, you just paid to get the transmission replaced about a year ago, so you got a new transmission. Why don't we just go after the engine, fix up a couple suspension problems, make this car like new again? Because new car prices are honestly just going through the roof. And what do you want to have? Do you want to throw $5,000-6,000 at this car and get it rocking and rolling for the next 5 years, or do you want to have $600-700 car payments? And she came back a couple days later after talking it with the family, and she said, yeah, that kind of made sense. I'd rather just fix the car and drive it, because I went over some of the new car features, and she's like, I like my cars old and simple, and I understand. I like old and simple cars too. That's why I have a 2003 Outback and I have a 2009 Outback. I'm just not into all the new technology, though I can service and repair it like no tomorrow. I see we got somebody else in chat. Thank you for joining. If you got any questions, I will be looking over my shoulder at the chat and answering them as we go along. On top of that, we finally got approval from the customer to work on the other Outback. That is also coincidentally a 2011, and that one was overheated, driven into the ground, and I convinced the customer that trying to salvage the cylinder heads, which were way out of spec, I made a short about that. They had, dang it, I think it was like 7/1000ths of an inch of warpage on them, and the maximum amount of material that you can machine on it, according to the service manual, is 4/1000ths. And you know, I don't judge a person for going online and looking for second opinions, and he's showing me all the forum posts of people who said it was safe to machine. I says, yeah, you're right. I believe those people, and I think that you might be okay. I'm not going to give you a guarantee because we're going against service information, and because of that, I can't offer you warranty on the repair. You can go somewhere else, and you can tell them to do that work, but at this location, we do not go against service data because we will not warranty it. It's just a shop policy. It's nothing personal. We weren't trying to swindle him into parts. It's just when you do this for a living, you have to, as a mechanic and maybe as a service advisor, or if you're if you're a mechanic or a service advisor, and you have somebody who's judging your analytical thinking, just hit them with the facts. And that's what we did. We said, this is service information. We go by service information. We don't deviate by service information. And if you're going to ask us to not follow service information, we're not gonna warranty this work. Because if you come back with a drivability issue, maybe you have some sort of misfire or anything, we're just going to contribute everything to those cylinder heads. So that took that gentleman a couple of weeks of thinking about it, and he tried looking at a couple of other shops, and those shops, they asked for the information we had on hand for the vehicle, and then they passed the same judgment. They said, you know what, we don't want anything to do with this engine. Because folks, when your car's overheating, you stop. You don't keep driving. I know you might be just 5 minutes from home, or maybe you think you can let it cool down and then you can drive it. I wouldn't honestly risk it. You can lose everything. And unfortunately, that's where this customer had gone. I thought I had some spill pads, so I'm gonna have to go fetch some. I don't like having liquids on the ground like that, especially coolant. I thought I had everything set up, but I used the last of my spill pads. I'll be right back. There they are. Whoa. Let's just get a whole mess of them. Here, San Antonio weather is looking okay today. We are 75 degrees with 75% humidity. We had some scattered showers this morning and it still has not burned off. So my pants and shirt feel 10 times heavier and it's making me feel a little bit exhausted. If I sound winded, that is one of the contributing factors. Hopefully one day our shop will be able to get some sort of HVAC system that can combat that, but as of right now we're an open base shop. Sucks. Now I got one comment. Hands-on Mechanical, Baja, do you have any video on a cam actuator leak on a 2017 Forester? Cam? Yeah, like the cam carriers? Yeah, I got a whole cam carrier video. It's I think it's like the second or third video I made. It's about an hour long. And it's everything from engine removal to engine teardown and putting the cam carriers back together. Cam carrier leaks was and is a problem on the F8, FB engines. I know the EJs had their head gasket problems, and then on the FA, FBs we fixed the head gasket problem, and now we have this oil leak issue. And what manufacturer isn't having oil leak issues right now? And I don't know why. I'm not going to speak for what's happening over at the factory, but every vehicle that I've done cam carrier reseals on have not had any more leaks, and some of those engines have a couple thousand miles on them. I'm sorry, they have over 100,000 miles on them. That's what I meant to say. That job, just doing cam carriers alone, runs typically about 18 hours customer pay. It's pretty simple. If nobody bothers me, I can knock one out in a day. The one thing that you do want to make sure is that the valve lash is good before you put it back together. But and the valve lash on those FAFBs, they're non-adjustable, they're fixed shims. But if you go to the service information, there's a pretty good equation of what you can put in. You measure what you have, you measure the lash, you plug in what you have, and it gives you a really, really good estimate of what you need to put in there. This might need some juice, some love potion. There we go. Love potion works every time. Shouldn't need the Ugga Dugga anymore. I'm gonna do my best to not get in your way. So if I fumble a bolt, it'll be your fault. So I'm used to sitting center on, but I gotta stay a little bit off. I will tell you that if you do work on an EJ engine, you take the heads off or you take the timing belt off. I don't recommend reusing the timing belt, even if the timing belt was replaced a year ago. It's not worth the risk. All this gasket material here is going to get replaced. We're using a complete engine reseal kit. This job will include tearing everything down to the short block. How's the tensioner looking? Shouldn't look too bad. We're also going to be replacing everything here. We're going to do the water pump. We're going to do the oil pump. If I do an EJ engine, you get an oil pump. Because if it's anything I've learned about EJs, water pumps, or the oil pump, is the crux of the engine, especially after engine repair. And it's not necessarily the what's the word for the little gears inside of it that make the pump work? Can't think of it. It's not necessarily the gearing inside the pump that goes out that has a problem. It's the oil pressure relief valve that is going to have a problem. It seems to get stuck in an open position sometimes, especially on the STIs. And then because the oil relief valve is stuck open, it's just dumping all the oil back into the sump and the crank gets starved. And that's the end of the short block. So if you're doing a timing belt job on an EJ, sell a pump every single time, especially on STIs. Alright, so to do a timing belt removal, we turn our crank. We have a line right here on the back of the reluctor. There's a line right here on the short block. We line that up. We got a line here on the cam and a line here on the cam. You line that up with the creases that are right above it. And now the cylinders are retreated and we're safe to remove our timing belt. Okay, Hands On Mechanic says, thanks, I'll check the video out. The shop you work at is 100 times better than the dungeon I work in. Yeah, we all have opinions on where we work, man. I say you just try and make what you can of where you're at. I've seen shops that look like I've seen some other shops that look like they had some pretty sweet green grass. And then you talk to the people there and you're like, "Oh, dude, the bureaucrats and the politics here are so bad." And man, so sometimes those shops that look like a hole in the wall, they're the safest place to work in as far as not getting messed with. Did I put my 3/8 impact back? That's a 1/2 inch impact. Oh, here it is. I'm already lost. I thought, trying to make sure I'm all set up and I'm not. These pulleys are also going to get replaced. Let's see how they spin. Yeah, and it's got some wobble in there too, so it was done. This one still sounds good, but I'm not chancing it. I don't chance anything on a timing belt. There's a lot of customers that come in and they're like, "Oh, I only want to pay for the belt." And you're like, "Yeah, well, you'll be back in 20,000 miles when your tensioner takes a dump." The tensioners, they have a little rubber O-ring back here, and that's just to hold that washer in place. If you lose that rubber washer, you just put a new one on. Okay. Now I'm going to, we got this one which is unloaded, this one's still loaded, so I'm just going to give it a tilt, a little gingerly tilt, and unload it. And there it goes. The term loaded, when we're talking about cams, means that the cam actually has pressure on the valves and it's trying to hold the valves. So I purposely unloaded that because I have my pistons in a retreated position, they're safe, and I want to make sure that the cam unloaded in the correct direction. It's happened before where they can unload counterclockwise, and I don't want that to happen. I don't think it would cause any damage, but I'm a worrywart when it comes to engine repair. And it's already hot. I'm just bringing over all these extensions. I didn't think I was going to need to, but I want them now. Alright, I'm going to focus on taking this intake manifold off. If I can reach down in there. My fuel rail's getting in the way with this, so I'm just going to switch up to a classic extension and regular socket. My wobbles are in the way. Let's bring over a 12 short and long. Seems like I'm going to need it. Still need to fix my damn air hose. It leaks. You probably can't hear that fitting leaking, but I can hear that fitting leak. It bugs me. If you're new to tearing down engines, or you're just doing an EJ in general, cardboard boxes are your best friend. I recommend just getting a cardboard box for the driver's side, the passenger side, the top of the engine, and the bottom of the engine. When you tear enough of these down, you kind of start remembering what goes where. So you could pretty much just hand me a bolt and say it came from a EJ or an FA or an FB, and I'd be like, yeah, I know where that bolt goes. You just get used to seeing this stuff. Let's go ahead and get that oil filler out of the way. Into the box you go. If you're going to use pliers on clips, make sure you get these adjustable pliers so you can set the mouth and not crush your clips. I've seen that new clip tool from Lyle Tools. I tried this, but I didn't like the way it felt in my hand. And I really got my grip trained on these pliers pretty well. That, and I'm not a big fan of having a unitasker tool. Unitasker meaning that it's a tool that just does one job, unless it's a piece of test equipment. That's different. All these coil packs here, while this part is good, the boots are bad because they're completely oil soaked. as you can see right there. So I could have sworn that we used to be able to get just this part right here with new springs, but not anymore, and that stinks. So we got to buy 4 new coil packs for this car. That hurt my customer for about $800, and I felt really bad about that. But I remember being able to get those separately a long time ago. Catalogs, they change, guys. Got a wiring harness removal up here on the top. Get our fuel rail disconnected, because our fuel rail does blend in to the crossover pipe for the coolant. So when I go to remove my intake manifold, it's going to get hung up. The fuel injectors, they're going to go out to the machine shop. They have an ultrasonic cleaner, so they're going to clean them up, and they're going to float test them for us. I hardly ever see fuel injector problems on these single overhead cams, but when you're doing this much work, having some assurances is very, very beneficial. I'm hoping one day one of those companies out there decides to give me one to show off to you guys, because I don't have the hundreds of dollars to buy one of those. And I think they're pretty badass, and I would like to incorporate them into my daily services, especially when I do engine teardowns. Alright, so this is the new style of single overhead cam. Before we discontinued them, they have an EGR pipe on them. I gotta break that loose. And when the Outbacks changed over from the low-sitting wagon style to these higher kind of crossover SUV look, they changed the entire engine mounting platform, and these extra little bits and pieces came along with them. Our engine reseal kit is going to come with new EGR gaskets, and we will be taking apart the EGR and cleaning it so we don't have to put a new one in. As long as the stepper motor on the EGR still works, I'm happy with it. We're just going to clean up that valve of any carbon that we're going to find on there. intake manifold assembly. We just got some hoses hanging on here. We'll get rid of them. What's going on, my man? Still got some souvenirs here. Okay, you can stay. You're gonna go. I'm just gonna fight this PCV valve for a second. Gotta be very careful we don't break any of this plastic. And I'm really happy at the condition of the rubber. I'm gonna be able to reuse a lot of these rubber hoses. That's usually the death of when you tear down an engine this far, is the rubber is just so deteriorated. And then the bill goes up another $300-400 because this is not generic rubber. Or there's a few spots you could get away with just like some hose from a reel, but a lot of this is pre-bent lines, and we don't want to dork. They're all one-off stuff. We don't want to dork that up. We'll put that in the pile. I also have to be really careful I don't get any of this mixed up with the other engine that I'm building up. Yeah, that PCV's trash. Oh yeah, she's been leaking coolant on top of the block too. This engine's been waiting to get tore down. If I take bolts off of the block or the head, I will just screw them back into place where I found them. So I leave a little breadcrumb trail. But overall, these EJ single overhead cam engines, I've been really happy with them. They're good, they're reliable, you just keep the oil changes up and replace spark plugs. And it's definitely an engine that you can drive into the ground again and again, as long as you don't overheat it, of course. I know we have our jokes about head gaskets on the EJs, but if you read about that and you learn about it, you'll note that the head gasket problem on the EJs was a 90s problem, and Subaru did a lot to fix it starting in 2000, and they really nailed down the problem by about the time the engine got discontinued. So 05 to 2012 EJs, they have all the updated head gaskets, multi-layer steel, better gasket material. But if you still find one and it's and it's leaking, most likely what happened is the the coolant wasn't taken care of. A lot of customers are not educated well enough on electrolysis, and I didn't know what that was until like a few years in when I started reading more advanced books about engine repair and what electrolysis can actually do to an engine. So basically, what happens is the coolant in your short block is a mixture of water and glycol. All right, that's why you have a percentage mixture there. And the original coolant that Subaru sold was a concentrate. And people were just mixing it with tap water. And tap water has a lot of impurities in it, minerals, fluoride, and whatnot. It's different for every area. That's why some areas suffer head gasket problems more than others. Because if you use a concentrate to cut, I gotta get this clip. If you're using a concentrate to cut, I'm sorry, if you're using water to cut concentrate, you're introducing in contaminants that will eventually allow electricity to build up in the coolant system. All right, the coolant becomes a conductor, so to say. But if you use deionized water, you could use distilled, but the proper recommendation is deionized water. It's a little bit more expensive, not too much. That's why a lot of people go with distilled. But that is water with no impurities whatsoever. And because the water has no impurities in it, it can't conduct electricity. Now you could do that same test by yourself at home. You can, hang on. I'm talking, I'm hung up on something, trying to feel for it. Okay, it's a radiator hose, got it. It's my throttle body's got a coolant line. Yeah, so let me get my story backtracked here. So here's a little homework assignment for you. Go to the grocery mart, go buy a regular bottle of water, like the kind of water that you would drink, okay? I don't care what brand, just go buy the cheapest bottle of drinking water you can. Then go buy some distilled water, and then go buy some deionized water. Now, deionized water might be a little bit trickier to find depending on where you're at. You might have to Google for that. Because I think last time I looked it up, it was $30 a gallon shipped. But I ended up finding some at a local science store. Where hobbyists shop at. So you got your waters, set them up in glasses, and then measure the resistance. Stick your multimeter leads in there, and you can check how well that water is conducting. Test your own tap water too. It's very interesting. I had a professor that was so confident in it, and this guy, like, he really knew science, and he did a lot of crazy science experiments just to kind of make us go like, what? But he had 5 gallons of deionized water. He pours it into a foot bath, and then his aide came over. Oh no, there's something in here. What is in here? Oh, that's the paint, the coating inside the pipe. I'll flush that out. It'll be okay. So yeah, so he had 5 gallons of deionized water poured into a foot bath. He puts his foot in there, and then his aide comes along, and his aide drops in a live 120 line. He didn't get electrocuted. He takes his foot out. Then I think he put in like a piece of pork, and he poured salt in there. Did the same thing. The water became electrified. You can test your coolant for electrolysis very easily too. Okay, you just open up your coolant, take the radiator cap off. I use a fill bucket so it doesn't overflow. Warm your engine up, stick a test lead, doesn't matter which end, just maybe, okay, I'll say the red end. Put the positive end in there, set your voltmeter to volts, touch the ground, and see how many millivolts you pick up. I've seen some of these old cars come in and they have like 500 millivolts floating in the coolant. Then we do a flush of the system and it's down to nothing. So electrolysis eats head gaskets. That's where I'm getting at. Don't fall. It wants to fall. I should really do a class on electrolysis. You guys will like it. A lot of people, when they pull out these EJs, they like to take the power steering pump off in car and throw it to the side. Now, you do you. I personally am not a fan of it, purely because of the fact that you are disturbing those power steering lines and you can kink them. You may not see it on the outside, but it'll definitely be on the inside because they're just a plastic hose with a rubber sealant on it. Same thing goes for AC lines. I see people do that all the time. They don't want to evacuate the AC system when they pull an engine. So what they'll do is they'll just unbolt the compressor and throw it to the side. And I've seen a lot of people chase down AC leaks only to find out that the hose is leaking. And then I'll look at the history and I'll say, hey, this engine's been pulled. And more than likely, that person did what I think they did. And they rolled the compressor off to the side. I'm going to leave my NOx sensor on the engine. If you do remove the NOx sensor, make sure you mark its orientation. It's very important. That goes for all NOx sensors. And you use hand tools only to remove it. there's a little crystal in there, and impact tools cause cracks in those crystals, and if you got a bad reporting knock sensor, you'll get drivability issues. Y'all are pretty quiet in the chat right now. Making sure you can see. Yeah, that's a good picture. I can see it. All right, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to get this valve train disassembled here. Ugh. Tip it so you guys can see. This is Subaru's early on version of controlled valve lifting. We call everything VVT. Honda really just kind of, I'm sorry, we call everything VTEC. Honda really did a good job with marketing on that one. But every company calls their variable valve lift something different. I think Subaru calls it like VLCS, something like that. I don't know. I just call it VTEC because everybody knows what I say when I say VTEC. But we're using a single cam that controls our intake and our exhaust, okay? Hence single overhead cam. We have fixed lifters on the exhaust, but our intake is variable. Our intake has one valve on each piston that will open and close the entire time. It has a second valve that will open up partially. And the only way that partial valve is going to actuate open the entire way is when oil pressure is detected here by the oil pressure switch, and then that's going to let the computer know I got high oil pressure, which means the engine must be at high RPMs. It runs a lookup table and it says open up the VTEC, turn on the VTEC. So that's what this oil control solenoid is. It opens up, oil pressure comes through here, it engages a locking mechanism right here, and it changes the lobe over to a high lift. So now you have both intake valves opening up all the way. That's it in a very simple fashion. It's a system that works really well and it doesn't break. Now we have to de-spring these. There is a Subaru special tool, but it doesn't exist in this shop at least. I'm sure it's hiding in somebody's toolbox and they don't know it. But you can use a 4.5 millimeter long 1/4 inch socket, and we're just going to pull down. Damn it. I lost it. I need you. There we go. Let me put an extension on it so I can get my hand on it. So we get it here on this little tab. Pull down, but don't use too much force. And using a pocket screwdriver, just kind of teeter-totter it to the side, and it releases the spring. Same thing with this one. If it's not moving, just pull off, reset, check. Don't force it, because you can break these tabs off if you force it. The Subaru special tool that can do this, it's like $300 because obviously it's a one-off tool. Okay, now that that is all done, tension is taken off, I can now remove this system. And I might actually have the tooling here. Oh, okay. What's up, Garage Monkey? Good to see you here. And, oh, hey, Volo. Welcome back, sir. Good afternoon to you, too. Yeah, I'm playing a lot of catch-up. There we are. So these little special tools right here, these are clips, and we install them right here on these moving actuators, and it keeps them in place. And we want to keep them in place because there's a sliding pin, a piston. It keeps this from rotating and that piston falling out and you losing it. If you lose that little pin, you got to buy a whole new setup and hundreds of dollars. And we as mechanics don't like spending hundreds of dollars on a customer's car. Now these little plastic clips, you can get them at an affordable rate. They are $35 a set. And I used to have quite a few sets, but they've all grown legs. I need to buy a couple more sets. I need to buy a couple more sets to replace them. The problem with having your own manufacturer special tools that you buy with your own money, sometimes the guys in the shop thinks that it's the shop tool, and it's not. I know a lot of people are gonna say that you shouldn't have to. The shop should buy it. Yeah, the shop is responsible for buying one of each special tool, but you have to share that with all the techs in the shop. And there's always that one tech in the shop who says, well, I do this job so much, I'm just going to keep it in my toolbox. And that one time that somebody needs it, it's not available, that guy's got the day off, his toolbox is locked, and you can't do your job. So I kind of got tired of that. You see how that all stays together? It's beautiful. I'm just going to lay that on my valve cover, like so. I'm going to take this up as one piece, put it in my valve cover, and that's it. This end is done. I kick it off to the side, and we can get our cam off now. So much for wearing gloves. My hands are already sweated through them, and it feels icky, so I'm going to work barehanded. Yay! That's why you see a lot of us working barehanded when we're supposed to be wearing gloves. It's just because your hands get sweaty, and having sweaty hands with nitro gloves on makes it very difficult to work. Alright, I need this plastic cover off so I can get my oil dipstick out of the way. You could muscle it off without taking that cover off. I just don't want to go through the headache. So it comes off. And into the front cover box it goes. This dipstick is out. Nothing else is attached to the head, so we're ready to remove this head. And if you guys want a different view, just speak up. I'll move the camera for you. It doesn't have to be in one spot the whole time, but I do have to stay working, or otherwise they're going to get suspicious of what I'm doing. And that cracking of the stretch bolts, it's not a problem. It's normal. We just take little chops at her until they're free spinning. If we remove our bolts unevenly, you can potentially cause warpage to the cylinder head. It's free spinning there, 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 and now that one's free spinning. Good. If you do cylinder head work a lot, I recommend getting the Sonex cylinder head bolt set. You get all 4 sizes of cylinder head bolts on a 1/2 inch. Very nice, and they're nice and tall, and they're all 12 point. I think I paid like $50 for them on Amazon. You'll see the same ones on the tool truck for over $100. There's some tools that I'll get on the tool truck just because I know that I will wear them out and I will break them. And then there's just some where I say, I don't care if I break it. It's cheap. So this is something unique to the EJ single overhead cam. It's the 2 center ones. They have black dots on them. Okay. Even the new ones have black dots, so they have to go back in the center. I don't know why. If somebody out there knows, please let me know. I do know that the center bolt does have to be tightened a little bit more than the outside bolt, so maybe it has to do with some sort of stretching that happens during the torque sequence. The cylinder head looks great. No problems there. We're going to set it off to the side. And once we get the other side off, we will measure them up and see if they need to be machined. Now, should you machine every cylinder head regardless? Yes and no. That's all I can say about it is yes and no. If it passes inspection, it doesn't need to be machined, then I just polish them up, check them again, and put them back on. Unless the customer specifically asks for machine work. But I can save the customer $300-400 by not sending it to the machine shop. Second reason why I would offer my opinion to not machining a head that doesn't need to be machined. Hypothetically, my work is fantastic, but let's say the car was in an accident and it overheated, and now the cylinder heads are warped. All right, well now there's material left on the cylinder heads. We can machine them. So I don't know, guys. You let me know what you think about that in your opinion. I know that there's some hard-hitting engine builders that want to machine and polish everything to their heart's content. But when you're working with customers and you're charging money, it's a whole different ballgame. I know when I build engines for my own personal use, everything is beautiful, everything goes together, everything is port and polished, everything is machined. And that's just me because I can do it at my own pace. I don't have a customer, or I don't have a customer going crazy wanting to know like when their engine's going to be done. So you can lose up to a week depending on the machine shop you send your work out to and how busy they are. I'm very fortunate that we have a machine shop that works very well with us in my local area. I would mention them, but ooh, yeah, that's disgusting. I would mention them, but they haven't given me permission. So I don't want to violate that. But because we send a lot of work there, we get a little bit of priority. So we can get a faster turnaround. So whereas maybe a walk-in client off the street might have to wait 4 days to a week, we can get our stuff turned around in less than 48 hours. There's been some times where they said, if you can get that cylinder head to us before 9 o'clock, we can have it done by end of day, and you can pick it up that same evening or pick it up at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we've done just that. But that's what a machine shop will do when you send them a lot of business. There is a little bit of a price change to that. Like they charge us an extra $25 for cutting the line. How's my chat? Now, Volo's talking. Because the motor oil is the driving factor for AVCS, so question how different viscosities oil impact it. Okay, I'll talk about that. For me, I change my oil twice a year. For winter, I use the recommended 0.20. For summer, I use 530 to feel safe. Honestly, so this is what I've learned, and this is from taking oil viscosity classes from the people who write the SAE standards for the label on those bottles, okay? Use the weight of oil that the manufacturer designed that engine for. That oil is rated per your owner's manual for freezing temperatures and ultra hot temperatures. It's a world grade oil. If for some reason you're in a region where you suspect your oil might be compromised due to temperature, your owner's manual will state that. So if your owner's manual says nothing about running a 530 and a zero weight vehicle, I recommend just staying with the zero weight blend. And here's why. And this is a reason. Let me get these out. Something about this and talking I can't do. All right. So here's a real life problem that plagued my shop with a customer. This customer had a 2016 WRX. Okay, that was the FA engine. And it runs on 0W20. Now, He had been in the shop under his within the 30,000 miles of owning the vehicle. He had been into the shop multiple times for problems with the phasers. Okay, because remember the new chain-driven Subarus, the FAs and the FBs, we don't have this mechanical lifter system. We now have phasers here on the camshafts that do that manipulation for you. So he had been here, I think on his third visit. He's fighting a battle trying to get his car limbed out, and his car wasn't tuned at all. It was all bone stock. Nothing flashed on the computer. And if I remember correctly, I need to pivot this around, because I didn't get called in to help on that situation until way late. It was with another technician for a while, because once a technician starts working on a car, every time that car comes back for the same issue, they try and get the same tech on it. So the first time it came in, they put new phasers in. The car was fine. And then less than 6,000 miles later, check engine lights back on. The customer's complaining about the same thing. Same codes. So now they do phasers, chains, tensioners, like the whole front timing assembly. Golly. That whole front timing assembly got replaced. Customer comes back. A little while later, same codes again. All right. So he's got a 3-time visit for the same problem. I need that thing to break. They finally asked me, like, hey, help this dude out, see what's going on, find out what's going on with this code. I look at it, and I'm studying the history. I'm studying the history on the car and what the work that was done. And I started, like, putting some things together. And I was like, well, the only oil changes this car's had is when we do this, we warranty out these parts. And I says, and then 4,000 miles later, this guy comes in and he's got problems. So I interview the customer and I asked him, I says, hey, who's changing your oil? He says, well, I do. Can you tell me what oil you're putting in your car? Well, he's putting in this, like, heavy duty race oil, royal purple stuff, like a 540 blend. And so I explained to him, I said, your car is not designed to run that oil. And when I further looked into the situation by looking at the freeze frame data for the codes, I told him, I says, hey, like, these codes, they only set on cold start. And that's because you have this thick oil in there, and your phasers are getting angry because they're not actuating correctly. As you have a sensor for the phaser, and then you have the ECU, which is trying to tell the phaser what to do. And if the ECU says, hey, phaser, do this, and the sensor says, your phaser ain't doing this, bro, something's going on, a code is set. So he didn't believe me, and I told him, I says, well, here's what I'm going to do. I says, I'm going to change your oil. And I flushed it all out. I think I put the zero weight in, I ran the car, then I dumped the oil, and then I put more zero weight in, sent him on his way. But I told him, I says, hey, I put witness marks on your fill on your dipstick and on your drain plug and on your oil filter. Don't touch anything. And I says, I need you to come back here for your next oil change, whenever you want to do it. You want to do it in 6 months or you want to do it in 6,000 miles, you tell me. But you get your oil changed here, and I guarantee you, you'll never have this code again. And he didn't believe it, and sure enough, when he came back, he didn't understand what was going on, and I explained it to him again. Ooh, that doesn't look healthy. So I explained it to him again. I says, well, you got zero weight in there, and your oil passages are set up to run on the zero weight, not this heavy weight, and because that heavy oil isn't warm enough, the viscosity hasn't picked up yet. That is why you're throwing this code. So I was like, your oil is just too thick at engine startup. You need to warm it up a lot. And I further explained, I said, you don't need to run this heavy oil at all anyways. Whoever's feeding you this urban legend, you're completely safe. Because some people who have switched to the 530 and don't complain about it, they'll also complain about having reduced gas mileage too. Ooh, yeah. That's that cylinder right there on the left. Something's been going on in there. Lots of nice flaky carbon. So because that carbon's breaking up like that, and I see the cylinder's getting a little bit clean, there might have been coolant actually getting into this. And the coolant was steam cleaning out the carbon. That's my best guess. So Volo, I hope that helps answer the question there. Even some of these new muscle cars that have been coming out by Dodge, the Challengers, the SRT8s, they have customers that are experiencing the same problem too. The customers, you know, they know they bought a performance vehicle. They want to treat it like a performance vehicle, so they want to put performance vehicle products in there, and they think by running a higher weight of oil, the engine's going to be safer. But the next thing you know, they got bad lifters, or they got spun bearings. So we're going to do a little transition here. We're going to get the engine out of the way now. We're going to focus on these cylinder heads and determine if we got to send them to a shop. These are just some cheap, generic cylinder head stands that I got off the Amazon. I paid like 20 bucks for them. There's many like them. They all come from the same Chinesium factory, just got different manufacturer names. So I think I will move you guys to a higher angle above me so you can see the top of this cylinder head better. As soon as I get my dirty hands cleaned up. Alright, I hope that doesn't wobble too much. Alright, so I'm going to be using some valve cleaner here. Don't want to get that on my tool. This is what you would spray into the top of your engine while it's running to perform a top engine cleaner. I'm going to use that to dissolve as much of that garbage as possible so I can wipe it clean. And I'm going to have to put gloves on because you do not want this stuff on your skin. While the skin on the human body is really good at repelling things, it is also really good at absorbing things. Your skin will absorb this chemical, and when your body absorbs it, it goes to your kidneys and it goes to your liver, and you can get really sick. Obviously, it would probably take a great amount of that, but if you're working with this product every single day, you're gonna get sick. Spray this one while I'm at it so it can pre-soak. We're using Taskmaster brand blue shop whites, lint free. Red rags have like 0 absorbing power. It's funny when our shop was going through a new vendor to get towels in the shop for cleaning engines. They were trying to get us to use these other ones, and I was like, I don't want those things, they fall apart. And he didn't really understand, and I says, well, they don't have any absorbing properties, they rip and tear apart. And I just did a really simple test, and I says, I'm just going to go wet my hands, and if it can dry my hands, then that's a good towel. And these blue towels, well, it failed. And these blue towels are so good, I've actually left them inside of my pants pocket. Goes to the washing machine, they come out clean. I just hang them up and reuse them again. Alright. There it is. Okay, we're going to be using a white Rolock here to just knock down a little bit of this. I like using this on the Milwaukee M12 polisher gun because it has a low setting which restricts the RPMs to a maximum 2800. Yeah, you could use an air tool, but it's hard to control your air tool. And I'm pretty sure somebody eventually is going to yell at me for using this. Well, folks, this is what the manufacturer tells us to use. What you do need to be aware of when using these Rolocks, because they're like Scotch-Brite, okay? They do have an abrasive to them. You don't want to press down on them. Just let them hover. And I always recommend using some sort of a lubrication, like this intake valve cleaner or even WD-40. And if you've ever used a floor buffer, you got to go with the rotation of the tool. Don't fight it. So we don't want to go back and forth like this. We want to go with the rotation. And while I'm doing this, if I tilt up, it goes left, and if I tilt back, it goes right. That's going to be good enough. And do not hesitate to keep using a fresh cloth here, because the last thing we want to do is pick up some of this caked on carbon from the piston and scrape it across our head and cause a gouge. Oh, got some on my tool. I don't need that. I'm happy with that. Okay, so Volo's asking about machine work. So the machine faces on the cylinder head to the short block. We machine, when you send your work off to the machine shop, 99% of the time only the cylinder head gets machined. We do check for warpage on the short block, but the short block has a higher tolerance for warpage than the cylinder head. And that is just because the short block has more rigidity in it, as opposed to the cylinder head, it doesn't. Also, with my straight edges and all my feeler gauges, I keep them in a microfiber cloth that has WD-40 soaked in it, or just motor oil, because that keeps it from picking up rust. So if you've ever had a set of feeler gauges and you go to use them like a month later and they're all rusty, start putting them in a Ziploc bag with some oil. You'll never have that problem again. I picked up that trick from the Philippines. Yeah, a little bit of something on there, huh? Let's measure it and see what it is. These might have to go to a machine shop. All right, we got 0.04 millimeters. Doesn't want to go in. Notice I pick up and I set down. I don't scoot it around. You don't want to force this feeler gauge through. Just needs to go on its own power. That's really good. That's honestly within tolerance. I could polish this head up and send it. Let's check out contestant number 2. Ah, damn it. Why didn't you guys say I was putting that on upside down? Ugh, my arm is stuck underneath. That stuff is toxic. So in cleaning the ring of the piston, I like to always try and go in the direction of the bristles so it's pushing the stuff back in there. I don't want it to get pulled out onto the cylinder head and then I score the cylinder head. I'm also using the same cleaner that cleaned my bristles off, so I'm not dragging that material around. One thing you want to be really, really careful about with this Milwaukee polisher and using this intake valve cleaner, it is very, very combustible. And this is a brushed motor. Yes, I have caught it on fire. Should be good enough to check. Use the same feeler gauge, 0.04 millimeter. And if you're needing a set of really, really fine metric feeler gauges, Snap-on just released a whole new set of feeler gauges, and they're all marked in millimeters. None of that, they're whole numbers too, none of that janky stuff. Ah, got a loser right there. This one's, oh, it's over here too. Yep. All right, we're going to the machine shop. Ooh, snap. Yep, mainly this center line right here. So these head gaskets, they were failing, as I suspected with that one wash cylinder we saw. Let's see how bad we are and see if we're going to lose a cylinder. Because another thing you have to remember is when you're sending work into the machine shop, they're just going to start skimming the head, depending on the operator, okay? I shouldn't, this is not all machine shops, but I have had a couple of machine shops here in town where you say, hey, resurface my cylinder head. They skim it until it's true. That's it, and then they'll write on there how much they took off, and you go, holy crap, dude, you just took off 10 thousandths of an inch. Like, you didn't check for warpage, and you're like, you didn't tell me to. 0.08 right there. Dang. All right, let's give it the big 0.1 millimeter. Oh, damn, it's still poking through in the center. Well, let's just keep working with the worst spot. Okay, this is 0.15, and it don't go in. All right, so it's somewhere between 0.15 and 0.10 millimeter. I don't think I have anything in between my 10 and my 15. No, I don't. So I'm going to double up a couple of them, which is technically inaccurate, but you do what you got to do to just kind of find out where you stand. So I got a 0.05 and a 0.08 doubled up. That makes a total of 0.13 millimeter. I'm getting feedback. Nothing. Nothing. All right. So it's between 0.13 and 0.10. I got a 4 and an 8. Let's see what a 4 and an 8 do. 4 and 8 go in. All right, so it's between 0.12 and 0.13. I got to go to the confuser and do some math. I'm going to look up the shop manual and find out our warpage on this particular cylinder head. See what's going on. .13 millimeters to inches. Okay, so it's got 5 thousandths. 5,000. So it's on the guys. It's on the cusp of probably not being technically machinable, but because I had to double up my feeler gauges, I know the machine shop I'm sending it to has more accurate equipment for measuring this. So I'm going to tell them that I need them to confirm my warping and tell me if it's within spec to be machined. When it's always on the border like this, the machine shops have much more accurate ways of doing this other than feeler gauges. Especially this particular shop because they have computerized CNC equipment. So there's been times when I've checked for cylinder taper, and I've been like, man, this is kind of like borderline bad. And then they get in there and they're like, no, it's actually borderline good. I'm like, cool. And that's just because my instruments are handheld instruments, and with me using them, I introduce a margin of error. So with that feeler gauge, yeah, you know where I'm going. Computers are awesome. Really? Holy crap. Dude, the warp limit on these heads is amazing. All right. Okay, so my warp limit is 0.035 millimeters. And obviously we ran a 0.04 millimeter straight through. We were all the way up to 0.1 millimeter. And we guessed it is probably 0.13 millimeter. I've way exceeded my warp limit on this cylinder head. I need to talk to my advisor and tell the customer that this cylinder head should be replaced. Could this be machined out? Yeah. But as I just talked about earlier with the other cylinder heads, it's not worth the risk. Based on all the other work that the customer's buying, I hope that we give them a really good discount because this customer, they bought 4 new tires, front rear brakes. I'm doing all the suspension bushings. I think this is the one, this is the side that had the funky cylinder. Passenger side. Is this my passenger side cylinder head? No, this is my driver's side cylinder head. Wow. So the funny side was good, the other side was not. Okie doke. All right, guys. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to take an intermission after I chat. Adrian, AG, ABG. Adrian says you can see the gap. Time to weld it up. Ah, this is aluminum, man. This is aluminum. I don't know about that. All right, so I'm going to walk away for 10 minutes, take an intermission, guys. The time I have right now is 3:06-ish. So I'll see you back in 10 minutes. I'm going to update the advisor on what I found, and he's going to talk to the customer and see about getting us a new cylinder head. Okie doke, folks, I'm back. Let's see our chat. What's going on? Nothing new. Alright, so here's the update. I called the customer. We told them the measurements that we took. One cylinder head is 100% machinable and technically doesn't need to be machined, but she wants to machine it anyways. The second one she wants sent out to the second shop for another opinion. All due respect, I respect that decision because a new cylinder head is $600 and we offered her a $150 break just because of the amount of work that she's buying. We knew going in this was going to be a potential thing. We had a little extra money that we put on the quote to tell her, like, hey, because whenever we go this deep into an engine, we do always tell our customers that, you know, we're going to up the quote to $300 in case we find something else. So we may not be putting this back together until Monday. Which is fine. It's part of the job. Head. There they are. Get some boxes here to put the heads in. And there they are. I'm going to wrap the cylinder heads in these oil mats. Then I gotta put my contact information in there so they know who they belong to. And then I gotta write them a little love note of what I want done. So we're done with this. Let's go ahead and check our short block. I've been asked to, in my last feed, somebody wanted to know what kind of table I use there. That actually I got from the Home Depot. It's a little DeWalt fold-up table. You catch them on sale for about $99, sometimes $80 if there's a coupon. They sell a cheaper version that doesn't have the auto fold-out legs. You have to screw in the 4 table legs, and that one you can get for like 50. This stand doesn't sit perfectly. It's got a worn out spot, so I got to make sure my tool here doesn't want to slide off. Sending one of these in for machining, yeah, I just condemn the entire short block because the labor to split this thing apart so it fits in the mill, once you calculate in new piston rings, all new internal sealing, and then the labor to tear it down, measure it, and put it back together, you can just get a whole new short block so cheap. That's the problem with rebuilding this stuff is labor eats you. It's not parts. Okay. Oh, this is looking really good. My lowest one, 0.04, does not want to go anywhere. The deck is good. I'm happy with this. Really happy with that. No, not up here. It's good there. Let me move it. Ah, so that's better. Okay. See, because mine is a little bit small, um, I'll move this so I'm getting more of the inside where the weight of the tool is at. So that's good. All right. I'm happy with this side. I've had that straight edge for such a long time. I really should send it to a shop and have it measured, make sure it's still accurate. I knew one gentleman that had one, and he had it. He left it just hanging on the side of his toolbox, and every once in a while I would hear that thing drop, and I'm like, bro, that thing's garbage. And he kept using it until one day it bit him in the ass. Starting to, my roll lock is starting to grab a little bit. Got to lubricate it up. We got some wind coming in the shop too, and it's blowing in my face. Happy. And this is the driver's side. Because of these pins right here, I can't get it straight across, so I have to just kind of keep moving it around. This is really, yeah, this is all really good. I'm happy. So we have a good short lock. So we're going to stop working on this engine. I got another engine I'm going to bring over. We're going to build up. It's the same engine too, ironically. It's the one that overheated and got driven into the ground. That one we do have new cylinder heads for it. Ugh. So this one I had cut the filter open to make sure that there was no bearings in here or anything. This filter was clean. Here were the head gaskets on this car. You can see right here and here. It's where coolant was getting in and burning out. Here and here. If you do own an EJ Subaru and it has less than 100,000 miles on it, just start budgeting for this stuff. And if you can pull an engine, then you can do this job. This is an easy job if you can pull an engine. And you don't need a whole lot of special tooling to do this. I do need my repair order for a second. Yes. I just got to send a message to my parts people. And there we go. Just got to update people what I'm working on. One of the main problems I'm dealing with right now in just my little area is I got so many things taken apart. I gotta trying to keep it all in my head. I've run out of my tough totes. I only have enough tough totes to keep 2 engines separated, and I'm on my 4th engine right now. Everyone is finally getting their old cars fixed up. They don't want to buy new cars. It's good for me, but those damn tough totes that can handle all this heavy stuff without breaking, they're expensive. So I tried using those Sterilite containers, which is like knockoff Rubbermaid stuff. It's at cheap Walmart. Dude, they crack so easy. They're just not really meant for shop environment, but the tough totes, they are. They're pretty hardcore. They just come with a price. I think I was paying $25 a tote on a good day, and the price on everything is going up. It's just so ridiculous. I can't stand it. I mean, like, I thought the price of metal was going up. Why is the price of plastic going up with it? Not cool, man. So yeah, so just to store a torn down engine, so I don't get anything mixed up and nothing gets cross-contaminated. It's like $100 in totes, and I can get a few years out of them before they get so bad I gotta throw them away. They get beat up. A little bit of my fault. Sometimes I kick them around and then I go, ah, there was something heavy in there, and now there's a crack in it. As soon as I get these pipes off, I'm going to show you what cylinders look like when they get washed with coolant. And here we are. Look how clean they are. Yes, sir. They got my contact information in there, and then there's a note in there of what I want done with my contact info. Thank you for doing this. That's my porter who's going to take our equipment to the machine shop. Yes, look how clean these are. I didn't wash that. That's from being steam cleaned with coolant. The other side's the same way. Now, the deck on this one, whoo-wee, is it close to dead. I informed the customer we should just give up on this block. Just because of how much stress it went under and the warpage. But he said if it's within spec, I want to keep it. And I warned him. I says, you know, I can't guarantee that these pistons aren't going to leak. I says, I can't, because he overheated it so bad, I couldn't do a proper combustion check on it because of the head gaskets were shot. I told him, I says, I got to build up the cylinder. I got to rebuild your cylinder heads, put cylinder heads on here, torque them down, and then I can recheck for leaking. But even then, you know, that's not a hot engine. I says that's a cold engine. I says a good compression test is done with a hot engine. So he signed his waiver, and that's what you do when customers insist on going against shop policy. Is you just have them sign a statement of understanding. I'm glad you guys can't hear all the horseplay that's going on right now. How's chat? Volo says, talking about labor, here are some numbers from here. EJ20 rebuild because of heavy oil consumption, new piston rings, new timing belt set, new gaskets, new spark, something else. Converted to USD. Labor was 1,150. Parts $1,200 or something in the ballpark. Yeah, I noticed in your area, labor is always a lot better over there because your technicians, they're paid by the hour. Over here in the United States, they pay us flag rate, which means that we get paid an hourly wage, but that job is rated on labor hours. And so if I get a job done, if I quote a 12-hour job and I can get it done in 8 hours, you know, I profit. You know, we call that like a birdie. You know, I'm under par. If you take too long to get a job done, let's say I spent 20 hours doing a 12-hour job, well, I'm in the loss. And because America is all about capitalism, that pay rate is not going away. But if you have a shop with people who are willing to work for a good salary, you can get them to do whatever you want, and then you can pass the savings on to your customer, and you can get more customers. And trying to get into one of those shops where you can get a salary, oh man, there's a waiting list. There's a couple of them here in town, and they got master techs, like 20-year veterans in the business, and they're getting paid 110,000 US dollar salaries, and they're working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And their work is amazing because they can afford to take the time to do the job right. They're not rushing anything. They're not trying to get ahead of anything. They just know, like, hey, this job needs a little extra elbow grease. They'll put it in. And the work shows, and they don't have any comebacks. But when you get people who are on the flag system, I mean, that's great for a starting out guy who does like a lot of tune-ups, a lot of oil changes. That's a good way to incentivize them to work faster so that way you can get your waders out. But when you got work that sits in the shop for 1 week, 2 weeks because you're doing rebuilds, it doesn't really work out well for them. Because I'm putting all this work into this car, and I don't see a dime of the labor that I put in until I get it done. So I sent those heads off for machining, and I'm sorry, let me rephrase. I put all that work into pulling the engine, tearing it down, measuring it out, and now I got to stop for machine work. I'm not going to see those cylinder heads back until maybe Friday afternoon, if not Monday. So that's a total loss. I'm not going to see any of that on my paycheck this week. But I mean, it has its ups and downs. I mean, sometimes you do a lot of services here. Like maybe I don't get a lot of the weeks I don't have a lot of heavy line where I'm doing rebuilds and fixing transmissions and I get to do services. Yeah, I can make a lot of money. But if I get bogged down on a lot of heavy line like I have this month, I think I've done 7 transmissions, and I think this is my 4th engine right now. It can get a little weird. So when you're on a flag system, I always emphasize to people you need to structure your bills on a month-to-month and not a week-to-week. Because I've had a situation where I had maybe only 20 flag hours, even though I worked 50 hours in the shop for a week. And then the next week, I finished up all that work, and then I did some other work, and I came out with like 90 hours. And then the boss is all like, "Oh, you did an amazing job." And I was like, "Did you see last week?" Like, no. I was like, "Yeah, you only compliment the good things." That was at 12. Woo, them tight. But it's not all too bad, the pay system. I'm still here after 7 years. I just can't find another job that I like. You know, taking things apart, putting things back together. I like it. I tried construction, but I didn't like walking around job sites. I kind of like just being in my own little stall, fixing things the way I want to fix them. Inside this pan, there's a hidden bolt. It very often gets forgotten about when people reseal this pan. These cars, they come back leaking. And I already know exactly what it is when I see that leak. I see fresh gasket maker and I go, yep, I know what bolt you're missing. There's a keyhole slot. Very smart. I like it when they give you spots where you can pry on things instead of having to chisel them out. I don't see that so much on these new cars. And if you didn't see, this is my new trim tool. I love this thing. Oh man, she cooked. It's nasty. All right, so important note, the diagrams for this mating surface here are kind of weird. You have an O-ring right here, all right? This is an O-ring for the pickup tube, but the drain tube in the back, it's just gasket maker. And I see a lot of people, they will accidentally think that this goes here, and when they torque down this, it cracks. So gasket maker, hard washer with an oil seal on there. That needs to come out. Come on, man. There we go. Yeah, see, it's got a little step in it, so it sits right in here. And this thing will fit in here, and it'll fit in here. But if you put it here, it'll crack your pan. And this is just nothing. It's just an empty. It's just a dead hole. It's a really nice gasket softener. Okay, the manufacturers sell it. I don't see this at auto parts stores. They sell it in a really kind of like squeeze tube, and it sucks. But Subaru, GM, Ford, they all have this in a can. It's amazing. It's about 20 bucks a can. You can get about 2 engines out of it. Smells like oranges. But it softens up that gasket material really quick, maybe like 10 minutes. So I'm going to put that on all my surfaces so I can come back and scrape them in a few minutes. That's going to help speed things up. Be careful with your overspray of using that. I've had the butylene on my tools melt. And I had somebody that was working next to another parked vehicle in a stall, and a lot of overspray got onto the sidewall of the tire, and the next day when he came in, there was a bubble in the tire. So it'll eat some stuff. All right. This is all new timing stuff, so we're not going to replace that. We are going to put a new oil pump in here because he did run this car hot. And I put new oil pumps on all my engine work anyways. It's getting a new thermostat. Anytime I disturb the coolant system, you get a thermostat. I don't care. Gets a new water pump, so we're going to get rid of this right now. Again, if you're doing your personal vehicle and you trust parts to go a little bit longer, go ahead. But my objective is to not have this customer come back. Again, when you do things for money, you got to have a totally different perspective on how you do your repairs. That's why those guys who go try and get into the automotive industry that said that they've been doing side work for years and they know how to repair things. Well, yeah, they do, but they also don't know how to repair things to prevent a comeback because they're used to repairing their family's cars, and you know, mom and dad usually don't get mad too much when your brakes squeak after a brake job. Here, the customers get furious and they yell at your manager so much that your manager gives them a discount, and then the manager comes to you and says, hey, I got to dock the job that I just paid you on because I gave that dude a discount because he was mad, and I don't want to lose him as a customer. So you got to take your work very seriously. If something doesn't look good, then it must not be good. I need to get this off. She's pretty stuck on there. Give it some secret sauce. And I might have the bolts to pry that out. Let me see. I always got extra hardware. Not intentionally, not accidentally. Sometimes when you do a job, you get new hardware, so I keep the old hardware. Nope, none of that wants to thread in. Okay. Let me just get my puller set out here. Check chat. Nothing in chat. Way too big. That's for a bearing. I need something like a steering wheel puller set. Yeah, this thing will work great. Let's find out what goes in the what. Does that even have any threads in it? Ah, damn it, there's no threads in there. That's no bueno. I wonder when they stop putting threads in there. Okay, Volvo asks, will this work include flushing the radiator and heater core? The heater core, yes. The radiator shot. We're putting in a new one. Yeah, that was the main reason why he had a problem, is the core support on his radiator went out. And the customer was really confused because he said, hey, I should have seen the smoke coming out of my engine, and he didn't. And I asked him, I says, well, yeah, you were probably driving on the highway when it went, and the underdraft, this is the speed of which your vehicle was going, was creating a low pressure zone, which then pulled all the smoke out of your engine bay. So that's why you didn't see the coolant going, that's why you didn't see the hot coolant steaming out until you got off the highway and slowed down to where the steam started coming through the hood of the vehicle. So I'm using one of my old socks. I wear fancy socks. I got those fancy bamboo socks, but when they wear out, I still keep them because they're nice and hardy for doing stuff just like this. Red rags are thin and cheap. I'd like to know who has my blowtorch right now. I missed my torch. And I don't really want to pry behind this thing too much because I'm going to break the teeth on the reluctor, or I could bend the reluctor wheel. Makes me angry that I don't know where my damn torch is at. Good, this is going to work. Ta-da! Didn't even dig it up. Okay. It's my crank sensor. One, two, three, one, two. Mm. Hey, right about there is a good spot. Even though we're condemning this, we still want to make sure we take it off carefully. So right in here, this is the oil pump assembly. This is the rotor assembly. Okay, so this turns around, this siphons up oil, and then when the engine doesn't need the oil pressure, this calculated load spring right here acts as a pressure relief valve. Now inside of here is a little piston, and this is what I'm telling you gets jammed sometimes. And it only gets jammed on high mileage vehicles. So that's why I always say if you're doing a timing belt, you need to get an oil pump to go with it as a safeguard. I got a phone call. Speaker. Hello?
Hello, this is Montoya Machine Shop.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. Do you want them to get a valve job? Is that what you want to change the valve stem seals, or do you just want wash and resurface?
Wash and resurface, ma'am. That's all.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
All right, it's machine shop. They're just validating my request, which is very nice. I'm just looking for something that fits in here. Should be a 10, and I don't have a 10. Why don't I have a 10? Is that a 10? That's a 10. I'll open this thing up and show you what's going on. Because you could have a really good rotor in here, but you could have a bad piston release spring. So you have this, and this is a calculated tension load spring, so you don't want to stretch this out. And then inside of it, there it is, the plunger came out. And then this is the plunger. Now this one doesn't actually look bad, but on the STIs when I take them apart, I see scoring here. And what happens is it loses its shape, and as it's trying to go up and down and do its job, it goes sideways just enough to get stuck. Goes in there like that, goes in there like that, and then that goes on there. Now, per the book, it tells you that this spring, there's actually a washer right here. You have to measure the amount of spring tension with that shim. So these come like pre-calculated and loaded up, but just opening them up, you could change that clearance. So if you open it up, you pretty much messed this up. Because I do not have the tooling to recalculate that tension on that spring and make sure it's good. And I wouldn't want to invest in it because a new oil pump's like 150 bucks. Hey, when we rebuild the front, we're going to pull out these service plugs right here on the front because that is for pulling out your pistons. If you were going to split your block, I'm going to make sure that those get resealed up. And we'll take this rear main seal out, so I have to get the short block off the stand. We'll do the rear main seal. Which now seems like a good time. Okay, this is generically called a flex plate, or an engineer might call it a torque converter adapter plate. So this is bolted onto the crankshaft, and then this bolts to your torque converter, and your torque converter slides into your transmission. One of the reasons why I like this table is because it was meant for a table saw, so it's got holes in it to bolt things to, so I can just put the entire snout of the crankshaft in there. Woo, them on there pretty good. All right, let me get a bigger zippy gun. Uh, these bolts do not have to be replaced if you remove them, unlike some cars. Some high performance cars like Corvettes and GTRs, they will tell you that these should be replaced. Yep, good thing we're doing rear main. Rear main is leaking. This cover right here, this cover does not come part of the engine reseal kit. It's sold separately. So if this cover is leaking, which it's not, then you would have to get a whole new plate. So I'm going to use my oil seal remover tool just to break the seal. This is a really big seal, and this little tool will not have the beans to get it out, but I can go around all the edging and I can break the contact points loose. So that way I can get a tool in there and dig it out. Where's my squirrely little tool at? I generally have good luck with his hook because it's got a long, strong, fine point. I just want to be very careful that I don't dig into any aluminum. And I'm just going over in about 4 or 5 different spots, working it out evenly. Now these hook and pick sets, they do come in different steel tolerances. They're a good set will actually make the high steel ones made out. They'll make them black, and I know this chrome one is soft, so I'd rather have my pick lose than have my pick win in this situation. That baby's in there pretty good. See, that's a black one. I should have a trash can over here, and I don't. Ooh, that's loud. Okay, we're gonna wipe it clean, and we're gonna install the seal dry, no oil. Why are we not lubricating the seal? Well, one, because the book says not to. And two is because it could technically compromise the seal. This is our engine reseal kit right here for this 2011. It is 10105 Alpha Charlie 390. It's going to give us everything we need for the short block, the head gaskets, the cylinder heads. We got new valve stem seals, new rear main seals, new water pump, everything. This is a glorious kit. It even comes with new keepers, snap rings for the pistons if we were separating the short block, EGR gaskets. It's pretty dope. And if you're going this, even if you're not splitting the block, it is still a good kit to get versus getting everything individually, because one, you're getting everything you need for the engine, and two, it's a better deal. Because when you piece everything out, you're paying a heavier markup. Okay, then you get your kid's hammer. This is one of those hammers that has a plastic face. Just get it started going around. There is a tool that'll do this. It's somewhere. I don't know. I've just had such great success with putting it in like this that I don't care. Now, getting it flush is not enough. I should have showed you before, but there's a little chamfer on the edge, okay? So instead of, the chamfer means that instead of it being a 90-degree edge, it has about a 30-degree slope. You got to get it at the bottom of the slope, so this thing needs to go down about 1 more millimeter. And once you got it started this far and you get it flush, it'll go in very, very fast. I'm going to use another tool. I've seen some people try and get it that little extra millimeter with socket extensions. I don't advise that because you're putting a lot of pressure on one point, and by using a nice fat socket, I'm spreading out the distribution of the seal. Kind of wish I had that special tool now. There we go. Very good. And no damage to the seal whatsoever. I need to find this special tool and just like 3D print my own, you know? Alright, so this flex plate does not have a specific orientation that it needs to go to, but if this was a manual transmission, there would be an index on it. No, wait, I take it back, I take it back, I take it back. This is an EJ engine. On the FAFBs, there's an index mark back here because, where'd I put it? On the EJs, the cam position sprocket and sensor is on the front of the engine, but on the FAFBs, they moved it back here, so it's indexed. So you got to make sure that you put it on the index mark. And if you index it wrong, the car will still start. It'll just run like crap, and the computer will shut down all the oil control actuators, and the car will go into some sort of limp mode, and you won't be able to figure it out until you scope the cam and the crank against each other and you see that your cam is off. Yes, sir. Oh, yay. Hey, my allowance. It's my hour sheet. Super low because, well, I'm doing engines and they take up a lot of time, so I'm not doing services. All right, we got to torque these down. Let me look up the torque spec. Okay, item number 2. Okay, so we're going to tighten them all to 10 newton meters. Then we're going to tighten them to 40 newton meters, and then we're going to crank them another 30 degrees. Sounds fantastic. Garage Monkey, that's because you're on East Coast, man. You're ahead of me. Hurricane, welcome to the channel. Thanks for checking in. 2016 Subaru Crosstrek. Need a valve body replacement. What's an average cost for doing such work? Also, is there anything else that would cause a shutter? Okay, so Hurricane, if you have a scan tool and you can see the code set in the transmission control module for a valve body, because most likely the most common code that I see is a lockup duty solenoid, and then followed by that is the all-wheel drive solenoid. you're guaranteed to just need a control valve body. Control valve body runs about 900 bucks from parts.subaru.com. I do got a video up on how to install one. It's very easy. You can do it yourself because it's on top of the transmission. So you're just going to pull the plenum off your throttle body and just lean over your engine for about an hour. I do recommend changing your transmission fluid once you do that, and then you will need to program that valve body to your engine. But you can get a scan tool for like $99. Get the Think Diag 2. It Bluetooths to your phone, and it'll let you do the programming for that control valve body. So if you're looking to do it yourself, you can do the whole job for about $1,000. Stay away from aftermarket and rebuilt valve bodies. I'm going to use that to hold that down. It's one of the things I love about my digital wrench is it tells me how many bolts that I just torqued down. When you're working with a circle like this, sometimes you go like, did I miss one? No, I did 8 bolts. All right, 40. Going to 40 newtons now. There we go. Now it caught. Skip one. A little red is okay. I only went 1 nanometer over. I got the sensitivity set to high. Okay, now we're going to go 30 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees. I got to let it calibrate. All right, the gyroscope is set. Oh, this sucks. That was 10 degrees and that hurt. That's 150 newton meters, guys. I'm getting the big guy out. Number 14. 4:30 Central Standard Time here right now, so I got about an hour left in me. Okay, minor mistake I made. I gotta fix it. I forgot which one I tightened with the newtons, so easiest way to tell. Not that one. I think it was this one. Oh, guys, I can't. Okay, set it to 45, and if my bolt moves, okay, that one topped out. See if this one moves. Okay, that one. Okay, so this one I did. So I just got to do this one now. Much easier. That was 20 degrees. That was 25 degrees. Oh my God. 150. Next. What? Only how many do I got to do now? I need a marker. That one. You guys are going to get me confused. I know you are. Talking out loud, explaining things. I'm all out of markers. All I have is a highlighter. Yeah, that kind of works, huh? Not. Son of a gun. I don't have any paint pens? How come I don't have a paint pen?